What's up? This is Rebel Radio.
What up? What up? This is DJ Newmark.
This is Peanut Butter Wolf.
It's your boy. It's okay.
Keep checking out Rebel Radio.
Rebel Radio.
This is Rebel Radio.
We're in the place right here. Rebel Radio is going down.
Would you say Rebel Radio?
Oh, wait. Let's do it again.
Rebel Radio.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Rebel Radio. Today's guest is Marques Wyatt, one of the godfathers of Deep House in Los Angeles for over the last 20 years. He gives us some insights into how he brings his spirituality into his work, and it affects his music and his community that he's building around his business and really everything he does. And it's really interesting to hear his kind of integrated path that he's taken. And he also talks about the importance of mentors in his life and what that's meant to him. So tune in, hit us up on Twitter at Rebel Radio Net, and let us know what you think. Welcome back to Rebel Radio. My guest today, Marques Wyatt, a legend of house music, DJ, producer, promoter, label owner,
yogi,
traveler, busy man,
roller.
Part of what I like. Well, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Part of why I want to do this show, well, one reason is to connect with old friends that, I haven't spent enough time with, or
right.
And I'm learning stuff about people that I've known for 20 years that
for sure.
I didn't even know.
Yeah.
And we don't know each other that well, even though we've known each other for a good amount of time.
Yeah.
And the other two, though, is thinking about like I think of you as a DJ, but the reality is you are all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, that's really the essence of at least the music business, maybe all business today, is being able to be nimble and play in different lanes.
Right.
And,
right.
Be behind the decks and then be, in the studio and be, making deals and
right.
all that stuff.
Right.
But wait, okay, I got something for you.
Okay.
This is my gift.
Yeah.
This is not a sponsor mention, although if they want to sponsor the show, we might take them. Go to Flight 001. It's a travel store on 3rd. And they have this, it's called the Space Pack. Mm-hmm. And it's like these nylon bags that after you roll your stuff up, you put them in. And it basically doubles your capacity of your suitcase.
I have heard of their legend.
It's so good.
Yeah,
I'm not lying. I bought them for my mom for her birthday.
I will do that.
I can go a week,
right,
on the road. The tricky part is the shoes, right? Because I'm like
I know
a shoe guy.
Yeah.
I like to. I can't go a week with one pair of shoes.
Right, exactly.
That's the hard part. But
shoes are hard to roll for sure.
But you can go.
You need a separate bag for that.
Yeah, you can't roll the shoes. But they do have a shoe bag that'll like hold 2 pair of shoes in the space that basically takes one because you put them a certain way.
See, I'm a high top guy, and that's
high tops are tough. Okay. Yeah. So like you got to wear the bulkiest pair on the plane.
Exactly. That's how it goes.
And then have some lighter ones. Have your flip-flops wedged
in.
Your neck. Exactly. But when you travel, how much do you travel?
I've really been traveling a lot lately, pretty much every weekend.
Yeah.
For the last couple months.
And is it just playing shows?
Yeah, playing shows, but I've gotten better at, being efficient with the way that I travel and stealing an extra day in a place that there are places that are like some of my favorite cities. Yeah. And so I'll figure out a way to steal a day or so there. And
well, you have to, man. When you do what you do for a living, right? It can't. The travel it'll wear on you, right?
Yeah, it can. Yeah. I have a little reset routine that I know that I have to adhere to, when I travel to.
What is it?
Well, one thing I've learned is to really sort of rid myself of the jet lag is get a good sweat in. Like whether if a hotel mat has a steam room or if there's a yoga class, just make it happen. But it really does reset my system.
Yeah.
Nice.
And hydrate well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I used to run. I can't run anymore, but But that was one thing I loved was like going to a new city and
Yeah.
running.
Yeah.
And you can see the city.
Yeah,
LA.
seeing the city
Yeah.
and just being out. But now I try to do the same thing. At least get a hotel room workout, yoga.
Yeah, something.
nothing
It
else.
just really helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're a yoga guy, like I am, and I mean that's a great. I think one of the great things you can do that anywhere. You can,
Yeah.
now you can find a class in every city,
Yeah. Well,
or you can do it on your own.
Well, it's really interesting. When I first started taking yoga, I took classes in every city I went to because it's like, sort of like you have this built-in community wherever you go. Like you kind of, you kind of have an understanding of where everyone is operating from
Yeah.
because there is a certain type of person that really engages in self-care.
Right.
So I really found it to be pleasant wherever I went.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And how'd you get introduced to yoga?
Via a couple friends, but it's all about when you're ripe to take on the practice. I took one class and I really liked it. Then I didn't go back for a while, and then I just really started coming up a lot, and that's how I know. That's sort of like when I get these like little hits from the universe that it's time for me to really pay attention to something. And one of my friends started taking me to a certain yoga studio that I liked, but I just felt like there was more out there. And then one of my friends told me about another studio once I moved to the west side, back to Santa Monica, and I went to this guy named Govindas, who's like, it's sort of like your first DJ who really moved you.
Yeah, sure.
He's like my first yoga teacher that he just going to his class made me take on the practice.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's my guy. And then there were a lot of other amazing people on that.
And how long ago was that?
That was, I guess about 12 years ago, something
Nice.
like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I found yoga kind of by accident at like 19. So what was that? 20.
crazy,
It was a
yeah.
long time ago.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
What was that, 24 years ago?
Mhm.
And yeah, some weird way, my grandfather had a mailing business, like a direct mail business, and one of his customers was this woman, this yoga teacher,
Mhm.
who, back then, I mean,
Yeah.
I think there was Yoga Works. That was about it.
Mhm.
And, but she did private. So anyway, he kind of hooked me up a deal because it was expensive back then. It was one-on-one.
Yeah.
And he kind of hooked me up. So we did about 3 years together of like once a week,
Mhm.
every, just the two of us in a room,
Right.
get my ass kicked.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, exactly.
But by then, you're hooked. Like it's
Right.
Yeah.
in you.
Yeah, and I will say one of the other things that got me into the practice was a friend recommended that I do a month pass.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I did a month pass at Yoga Works, and I literally went every day.
Those
and
month
checked
passes
out
get everybody.
and checked out every teacher,
Uh-huh.
and that
That's
was
cool.
it. I just knew exactly what
Right.
I liked, and
Yeah.
yeah,
It becomes
mean-
like your church. For me, it
Yeah.
does. It is. I can't, like, if I have a really bad day, I'm like,
that's
Gotta
right.
go to yoga.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how about when you're trying to get to your creative space? Is that like something you're like,
for
I gotta
sure.
go to the yoga room
For
and
sure,
just get in there?
For sure, yeah. And I remember there were times like, you'll have those times where, you don't feel like going.
Right.
And I started doing this visualization thing because I know once I'm in the room, I'm good. But it was
Right.
just
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
there.
Right.
So I would like visualize myself on the mat. And I mean, sometimes it just seemed like I didn't even remember driving to the studio.
Nice.
Like next thing I know, I'd be on the mat.
Yeah.
But, whatever it takes,
Yeah.
to get you there. But the practice is on and off the mat. It's also not judging yourself when you don't make it, and just get back in there, and I mean, yoga practice is very, it's holds up a mirror to how you navigate your life, how you take on challenging postures,
Right.
and how
Yeah.
you deal.
Talk about that. How does that affect you as a musician?
I think it reminds me to breathe, and to flow,
Yeah.
really to flow with everything.
Yeah.
You know, even when you're, like I was saying, when you're in a challenging posture, just breathe through it. Don't judge yourself and just stay present. And and it's just like that with life. You know, don't give meaning to things that, as I say, are meaningless. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know, stay focused.
That's hard. I mean, it's hard in life, right?
Well,
And
it's a practice.
Yeah.
You know, so,
Yeah, that's a good point. It is.
yeah.
And I think it's a good analogy too for the music business, right? Is there's, you know, the things that matter versus the things that we spend our
Right.
energy on.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's you have to check in with yourself constantly because, like, you know, as they say, if you're not thinking, something else is thinking for you. It could be your default patterns and what have you. So you have to check in and say, does this matter to me? Is this something really worth allowing this situation to steal my joy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And usually nothing is really that serious.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to go back to something you said before about, it's like the first DJ that moved you. So who was that?
Well, I would have to say in a really dynamic way, it was Frankie Knuckles.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You know, it's just one of those things, like I'd heard other people play house, but when I heard Frankie, I was just like, wow, you know, like.
Do you remember that time? Like,
Oh, yeah. It was
where
when I
was it?
went to the World in New York, and it was probably 86.
Yeah.
And I had heard about Frankie. I had a couple of his records. That was just when I was just collecting house music, mail order in Chicago, New York. You know, I was just collecting the music, but I hadn't really heard a lot of the guys play. And I was going to New York. I would go to New York to hear people play. And I heard Frankie had a residency at the World. And so at the time, I remember I went there with my girlfriend at the time, and we go to the World, and we heard about. It was so funny at the time to like reflect back on it now. This guy Frankie Knuckles, he makes $1,000 a night,
Right.
Huge at the time. And so
that was unheard of.
yeah, so we go to the World, and Frankie starts playing, and I just, it was just. I was just put in this trance and just connected with my soul on the dance floor like I hadn't before. And it was like, it was hypnotic, and so I just remember being on the floor with my girlfriend at the time, and I said, I don't care if this guy disses me or what, I need to go upstairs and tell him how he's making me feel. So I went up there and I introduced myself to Frankie, and he's like, where are you from? I said, LA. He goes, you play house in LA? And I said, yeah. He goes, come in there and sit down. And totally forgot about my girlfriend on the dance.
Oh my
I was in the
gosh,
booth.
That's so funny.
I was in the booth for 4 hours until
way.
his last song, but she knew.
Wow.
She knew I was having my moment.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And from there, Frankie literally just took me under his wing. He's like, when you come to New York, here's my number. I'll tell you about stores to go to and labels to go by, and that's really where our friendship started.
Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah.
Do you do that same thing in return when fans come up to you and they're like, dude, I'm a DJ.
Yeah,
I love what you're
I am.
doing."
And someone just hit me the other day. I mean, it's really funny now because people are asking for advice, how you get where you are, you and Doc, and people like to, ask that. And it feels strange these days to actually say that you might get there through producing music, as a DJ, but that's really the climate we're in right now.
Yeah.
Whereas back in the day, it was just like work hard, stay
Right.
true to your music, and door will open and all that. But the state of the industry has changed to that, to where people are like, what song did they do?
Right.
Or whatever, you
Yeah.
know, and they're thinking of numbers and things like that. And when we came up, it was just all love.
Yeah.
There was no Facebook and all this other stuff to get distracted by. There's a lot of things that will lure you away from your authentic self now, which is so important. That's why it's so important to check in and say, why am I doing this? And,
Yeah. So how does that change your process? I mean, you talked a little bit about the personal side of that, right? Checking in, et cetera. But talk about the practical side of, like, you know, you're a DJ and a producer, but, you know, I think you've spent more energy as a DJ
and promoting events.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So I don't know how we met, but before we met, I used to come to Brass every week, I think, every time I could. So Brass was a club, early 90s, that was the place in LA, you know, for people that were into this kind of music, right? And you know, for me, you know, I was into house, but I was into hip hop, funk and soul,
Right.
And that was a special time, I think, when all of those things coexisted, and Brass was the place that all that happened. I think, you know, in New York it was Giant Step, was a very similar. You know, experience.
We ended up being really close and affiliates to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And it was funny, like, you probably don't know this, but the reason, you know, I started Brass with Orlando and Paul was because at the time the rave scene blew up in LA. And, you know, there was just no, like, quote unquote house being played at clubs. It was all raves. And so I didn't really resonate with the music that was being played at
clubs.
raves. Yeah, at raves.
Oh, at the raves.
Yeah, and so I was looking at an alternative. I always wanted to sort of contribute something to the scene, and that was just a serendipitous thing. I mean, you know, you're gonna get tested if you know, to trust yourself and trust the universal flow and whatever. And I just said, I'm willing to give this up, and trusting that another door would open. Orlando reaches out and says, man, we're thinking about starting this thing. And I said, I was totally thinking about the same thing. I was just really getting into quote unquote acid jazz. I'd known it as rare groove. And we started this night with like 50 people. Moved the tables around.
Where was the first night?
At the Grandia Room on Melrose.
Oh, wow.
And next thing I know, it was like lying down the block for the next 2 years, you know, and then we were able to introduce LA to Brand New Heavies and Jamiroquai, and just a lot of stuff happened from it. And then during that time period, I was actually going to San Francisco to play house music. So I'd literally play in San Francisco on Saturday at a residency and fly back on Sunday.
Oh, wow.
Move the tables around, open Brass. And then just a lot of stuff happened from that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was a magical experience.
It was very special because just the things that are just so unpredictable. We say we're just going to do this for the love. And next thing we know, the club just blew up. Even to this day, like it's hard to compare any club to Brass.
Yeah,
it was just really special. It was really a culture in itself.
Yeah. Do you think you can do you think you can make that kind of impact today in that way?
In
like, could someone come along and start a club?
Sure.
That has that sort of impact.
But you know, it's timing. Yeah. It's the music. It's the venue. It's all those. It's like the perfect storm of things to converge, and it can happen, but it will only happen, I think, from someone from a soul response, you know, not trying to predict something. It's just like acting from here and
your heart, right?
Yeah,
the willingness.
So go back before Frankie and you were how did you discover house music, and what were you into before that?
I was really into, this is going to be funny, really into 80s.
Okay.
Like I still love 80s. 80s is like my first
K-Rock,
love.
That kind of thing?
Yeah.
Like who's
Depeche Mode.
Okay.
I remember Depeche Mode, Just Can't Get Enough.
Yeah.
That was like my first song that I was like dance song in of the 80s genre that I just fell in love with, and KROQ used to play it every morning at the same time.
Is that right?
So I made sure I was in my car because
my God, that's so funny.
Because of Depeche Mode, I was basically on time to my classes.
That's amazing. Wow, it's so moving.
Because they played it literally the same time every morning.
Wow.
For a while, and then but what heavily influenced me in that genre and music at that time was, there's always a club there that's a piece to that pie, and there was a club in Hollywood called the Odyssey.
Okay.
And they just went all over the place. They played like, Buffalo Gals to like Bronski Beat to, they went all over the place, and I just loved that about it. And so, to give you some sort of gauge on my love for music is I'd go there with my boys. They'd be looking for girls. I'd be next to the DJ booth writing down titles.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
And that was really me. I mean, I collected a lot of music before I ever decided to DJ.
Yeah.
I had I had the music way before.
And was there a moment when you decided I'm going to become a DJ?
Well, another bit of serendipity happened with that, because I had a friend who was a DJ, who's a mobile DJ. That's what most people were at the time. And he didn't have as many records as I did. And so I had this huge record collection, and he had the equipment, and so we struck up this deal. I took all my records over to his house. I just wanted him to make cassettes for me, basically, with my music. So that was the deal. And after a while, I just remember he had a full load in school or whatever, and he said, "You're too picky. Let me just show you how to do this." So that's what. So basically, my friend Tracy Tren is the one who, said, "This is how you do it. Turntable 1, turntable 2," and then maybe a couple months into it, he's like, "Hey, would you like to do a party with me?" And at the time, it was like a local party, recreation hall kind of thing. And I played my first party, and it went very well, just put it that way. And he kind of grabbed me at the end of the night, and he grabbed me by my shoulder, and he's like, "You have it, quote unquote, and I really think you should really pursue this."
Nice.
And from there, I just sort of saved up and, bought my own equipment and all that stuff. And
What was the first record you ever bought?
It might have been. Oh, it might have been Aerosmith's "Toys in the Attic."
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty far.
Yeah.
We've
I've
come
got
a long way.
I mean, I grew up a skater in Santa Monica.
Sure.
So that was the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin,
Yeah.
Ted Nugent, whatever. He's a different animal now, but anyway.
Yeah. No, he was.
But he
was doing his thing
He
at
was
the time.
part of the soundtrack, and it was. That's always going to be part of my musical DNA. Yeah.
Can you hear that, or can you feel that influence in your music now?
Yeah, I feel like even the rock that I gravitated to at the time had a soul about it.
Yeah.
So that's probably been the common thread in the music that I choose. It has a soul to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. The kind of music that you make, and I guess we call it deep house, is I think a really special. It's really interesting because. Why do you laugh?
No, it is. It really is, because of how many things are labeled deep house. And
Well, yeah, that's one of the
totally
things I want to talk about, right, is all of a sudden that's become a term today that I think doesn't necessarily have the same meaning that it does for you. But also I think, it's a style that compared to maybe other genres doesn't change a lot. Right, whereas I think
you mean the arrangement.
Yeah,
or is that what you're speaking? Yeah, that's true. It's very simple. A majority of it is.
Well, I think if we talk about EDM, right, in the sort of mainstream big room EDM, like that's a really rapidly evolving genre, you know, and we've gone in the last 3 years, like through, you know, electro and dubstep and all these different sounds
Right.
that, you know, these guys are like hearing something and then building on it and moving really fast. And, you know, hip hop in some ways is probably a little slower, but it's similar,
Right.
right? Because there's this reaction, right? I hear this record and now I want to go take that and
Yeah.
turn that into my own thing. Whereas I feel like, you know, in your music and that style of music, right, there's this much more like consistent flow to, you know, I think we can put on records that you were playing 10 years ago and they're not going to sound dated.
Well, that's the whole thing. I really think, you know, substance equals timelessness. You know what I mean? And so I like to think that the music I play has layers to it and some musicality to it, and not just, you know, not too minimal or whatever. And it's great for whoever plays it, but I just have to be true to myself, and I know I can't, you know, really play anything that doesn't have some staying power,
Sure.
in my opinion.
So how much attention do you pay to what's going on in the broader like EDM world or pop music, or how much is that?
Yeah. Well, I pay
impacted?
attention to it just to be informed, and I get inspiration from a lot of different things. And so even if I go to hear someone and it's not the music that I play, there could be an element in there that I get. So I've never been one of the guys to like waste my time hating on other DJs and EDM. Any time that's going towards that is time away from me creating what I'm out to
Sure.
create.
Yeah.
You know? So there's no need, you know, and the people that I respect don't do that either. You know?
Yeah.
And and with EDM, it's, you know, it's funny. I'm just a person that when I see a lot of people having a good time, I have an appreciation for it. I don't judge
Definitely.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
especially just coming back from Coachella, and just I went to all the stages and go, oh no, that's not deep enough or whatever for me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so there's things to learn, I think, in everything.
What stood out to you from Coachella this year? Like any performances?
Well, it's so funny now because I've got nephews now, and I took them the second week with me, and they're on top of all the groups, you know, and they got their own network of friends and all the stuff. They keep them up on everything, and they all share, you know, and so it was funny to go to hear FKA Twigs, which a lot of people have been on top of, but there's so much out there. I'm like, I heard of her, but I had never seen her live. So I was there and I saw her, and I really loved what she was doing, because for me, it was like this mix of two of my favorite groups, which are a little Sade and a little Massive Attack. You know, that's what I heard in there. I'm sure there's other things and what have you, but she is one of the artists I really enjoyed, not just her music, but the artistry of her performance and all that, the dance and what have you. And then there was other people like Alabama Shakes, you know, like there was just War on Drugs.
Yeah.
People were just, I love festivals. You know, I just remember being, you know, a child and seeing footage of Woodstock, and it just resonated with me at an early age. Like, I want to be at festival. I want to be a part of festivals. And so, you know, it happened. You know, it's happening, and I really appreciate festival culture, from Coachella to Burning Man to Lightning in a Bottle to everything. I just like to see a lot of people having fun outdoors, basically.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Like I love festivals, and then I love clubs. I don't really like concerts.
Right.
Like the traditional go to Verizon and stand there watching somebody do their thing on stage. Like that doesn't get me.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is that, you know, I like part of it is feeling like you're part of the action. When you're at a club, you know, the music obviously is important, but the DJ's usually hidden in the booth. And so what that does is it makes it more of this kind of communal experience that we're all having on the dance floor together, as opposed to the disconnect of watching somebody on stage.
That's true. That I mean, I hear what you're saying, and but you know, at the same time, it's funny because after I saw FKA Twigs at Coachella, I was, you know, back at home and just thinking like I really love to see her again. Like, and I knew that I was going to be back in LA the next Saturday. Although I was playing at Coachella next week, I had to be back in LA on the Saturday. So I was going to miss her. But then one of my boys reaches out on Tuesday. It's like, hey, do you want to come to Belasco tonight? We have a table or whatever at FKA Twigs. So I'm like, I can't. Yes.
The universe.
yeah, exactly. And so
awesome.
I realized, I was like, I haven't been to a show in a minute. You know what I mean? I think because, you know, I mean, out playing or whatever so much, you know, I don't know, it just doesn't come up as often, or I don't put as much effort into going to see shows. And so going to see her there, that was nice. It was a nice change, I guess. After you do the other thing so much, like maybe going to into that situation would be refreshing for me. And so you know, and I did want to say other things that I appreciated at Coachella were, like, I went to hear Jamie XX, and I just really appreciated what he did, like, because, you know, you're in the Mojave tent, and I just think people have in their heads, okay, we got to figure out how to keep all these people moving, and he just played from the soul. Like, he played eclectic. And I walked in there, and when we got in there, he was playing what did he, Let No Man Put Us Under by First Choice, which is a garage record, in this, you know, in this big tent full of people that is known to be like more of a band or EDM. You know, there's a certain style or whatever you have to play in there, and he just did his thing, and I really respected that. And, you know, it's whenever I see artists like that, it's a reminder for me, like, just in case we might stray or whatever, just like try not to, but just a good reminder to always.
For me, it was Florence and the Machine.
Oh yeah, I missed her.
I mean, that is really far away from anything I would listen to.
I'm very surprised by that.
And a friend dragged me to the show, and it was one of the best shows I've ever seen.
No, they're amazing. They really are.
Yeah, I love her.
Yeah.
I was already familiar with their amazingness. So
is that right?
So I was just.
I wasn't.
I would love to see her band live.
Well, you like
I love Florence and the Machine. I mean, I love her look. I love her style.
Yeah, exactly.
She like takes me somewhere. I could listen to her album over and over, or their album over and over again.
But for me, it was like just a full engagement. Like, she, you know, she took her shoes off, she took her shirt off, and she was running through the crowd.
Yeah.
You know, not missing a note. I don't know how you can do that.
I know.
Like,
yeah,
it's funny. You know, when I mean, I respect what you said about we're not gonna hate on anybody, but you know, but I can't help feel when I see stuff like that, or when I see somebody like you play. Like, I can't help but feel that the people that sort of fake it, like, they're missing out. And it's not that, you know, everyone is entitled to do their own thing, right? If you want to stand on stage and pretend your turntables are plugged in, right? That's your business.
I feel, see, the thing is, I totally agree with that, but I just feel like, that is going to work itself out. So I don't need to voice anything about it. It's going to work. It has historically. It's worked itself out. So me saying something doesn't matter. It's already moving in that direction. You know?
That's fair.
So this, I'm not nowhere near like a DJ, or my library is questionable, but I've seen DJs play, and I've been very mesmerized by them. And I always think, like, wow, that feeling must be so amazing to be up there playing for a room and everyone's jamming to your music. What does that do to you? Like,
well,
what happens? I want to go in your mind. Like, what happens? Like, I want to feel that, but I'll never be able to feel that because I'll never do that. I'll never be a DJ I don't know what that feels like. When I play music for my friends at the house and they get excited about my choice of music, I get excited because they're excited.
Right.
But there's something else there. I know that there's like this spirit that like kind of takes over.
Well, I just see it as a reciprocal loop of energy with the crowd.
Right.
So me, I just feel like artists in general, we're sort of like this empty like conduit to send it back.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I think that also I never really got into that aspect of it. I honor the energetic that shows up through it all, but I think again, at the time that I got into it, it was for the love. These people are having a great time. That's what it's about.
Right.
And I don't really take too much time to think like, because I've been asked that from a different perspective from people that just want that energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so and I've seen people do whatever it takes to get that energy, and it's almost like filling a void. You know what I'm saying? That I want to feel that energy, and I think it might sound cliche, but I think I've just been filled with so much love from my family growing up that I don't really seek it on a major,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's because it's been sort of packaged that way to me.
Like the attention?
Like people need the
Yeah.
attention. I mean, I've seen
Right.
it. I've seen what people give, what parts of themselves people give up to get that attention.
Right.
And to me, it's not really worth it.
Oh
Right.
man, I mean, just hearing you talk, we just watched the Kurt Cobain documentary,
Oh, it's so wild.
but that was, you just summed up his life, his career, right? Was like he became, his creativity was a reaction to not feeling that love,
Right.
Right.
and then he was trying to fill that void, and ultimately,
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate it, but I never want to get to where I'm dependent on it.
Sure.
Right.
Because it's like if it's not there, it's like, who am I?
Yeah, because then
You
it's
know,
not
and-
fun anymore,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate. I mean, it's electric.
course.
It
course.
feels amazing.
So
Yeah.
so take us in the room. Then you're in the booth
Mm-hmm.
or on stage, and the energy's not there that night from the, what do you do?
The main thing is to, like I talked about before, not make it mean anything about me. And just do my best to play the music that I feel, and also, but tune into the room as well.
Yeah.
And you just do your best, and you'll have those nights, and but I call the nights where you make lemonade. You take the lemons and make lemonade.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's funny. So let's talk about Deep. We haven't mentioned that, but you've had this. You've been doing Deep for how long now?
16 years.
Yeah, and it's a club. It's a label.
It's a brand. That hasn't become a label yet, but
Okay.
that's in the works.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's more so a brand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what is what's going on? What's new?
Well, what's important at this point is to just really take care of the baby, as they say, and keep nurturing the baby, and so basically, like you said, you had mentioned something earlier about what people are doing to make the decisions for the brand, whatever, and you're right. There is an aspect of the business that it's funny, I grew up with more of an artist mindset, and so I would find myself gravitating to these partnerships where my partner was a business side,
Right.
because I didn't want
Yeah,
to deal with that.
smart.
And then later on, I learned as part of taking care of your art to learn the business and participate in
Yeah.
the business, which was when I started Deep, which was probably, the first, event of significance that I did on my own because of not wanting to deal with that struggle with my partners, wanting to treat artists as I would want to be treated. So you might be in a partnership where the person's like, well, let's put them in this hotel for $75. And I'm like, no, let's put them in this one for $150. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I was tired of arguing about stuff
Right.
like that. I just believed in a certain way of treating people.
Yeah.
And so I didn't, I have no one else to answer to.
Yeah.
Right.
And not that I'm not open to partners or whatever, but they would definitely have to have that sort of mindset as well.
No, it's hard. Partnerships are tough.
Mm-hmm.
And, kind of what you're talking about, like we each go through our own process and have our own needs and values and try to marry that together.
Yeah.
It's tough to make that work.
Yeah, and there's a whole thing where, like, before we did Deep every Sunday night, and then it went from that to a monthly, and then there's, do I feel pressure to get back into a weekly thing? And I'm like, no, I like it where it is. This works for my life. Like this, my life feels more in balance this way, and things like that. And and we're doing like merchandising stuff, but things that are, I feel authentic to Deep. And some things that are happening serendipitously through other people that might present us with an opportunity or something like that. But I don't feel like I'm out there chasing anything. And it's very important for me to be able to look myself in the mirror and know I'm not acting from a place that isn't authentic to me, and as well as the art,
So when you think about Deep as a brand, how do you, is it all your gut that tells you what the brand is and what fits and what doesn't? Or is there
pretty much, yeah. I mean, just checking in on how I feel, and also just it's been interesting lately because I've been going through a lot of old flyers and old press stuff, and just seeing this consistency of being true, and just really trusting that, and in that, like, I'm doing things now that I didn't set out to do. I never set out to do merchandise stuff, and then you see how well your merch sells, and you're like, I'm not going to, you know what I mean? There's the need, and seeing that it brings people that much joy, and it feels like community, because it's wild. Like some of the places I play and people show up in Deep shirts. I'm like, where did you even get that? I mean,
that's awesome.
In Australia or something, you know what I mean? And so that part of it just feels like a family to me. Seeing merch different places doesn't make me go, oh, they're wearing my merch.
Right.
It's like, it's like,
Well, it's funny because I think, the big corporate brands, they would kill for that. Right. They, they spend all this money to try to achieve that, and they can't because it's not authentic.
Right.
What do you think, like those, what do you think a big company could learn from a business like yours?
I would say to sort of take into consideration what they're trying to do and how they want it to fall on people. Like, that's, if you're doing something from a certain place, I feel like it'll resonate with people. So it depends on what their vision is. Some people are just like, want to go for the quick hit or whatever, and whatever. But if you really want staying power, I would suggest building some sort of foundation in authenticity with your brand. And I feel like it still can reach a great level of success in the business world.
Yeah, I think too many businesses miss that point, right? That consistency and sort of stability is really important. And we see brands all the time that, like, they go full on in one direction, and then 2 years later they go, never mind.
Well, you have to understand, people are unknowingly trained to miss it in business school or whatever. And they're not trained to tap into their authentic self. This is how you make money. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And
is there stuff like that you've had to, like, unlearn?
Unlearn. If anything, I probably had to learn more of the business side. But the other part was pretty ingrained.
Did you have conversations like, that's not deep, this is deep, constantly, and you're like, now I have to figure this out?
I've had people though. I've I remember working with someone, and they were, they were helping me do some of my social media stuff. They were like, well, you can go over here and you can buy 10,000 likes.
Right.
And I'm like,
And that's crazy to you.
Right? And I would never dream of that because
Well,
I
that's
feel
crazy,
like,
period.
yeah, but people
Right.
do it.
Yeah.
People
'Cause
do it.
For some perception.
And I'm sure it works to a certain degree.
Yeah.
There are some people that go to that page, oh, he's got 50,000 likes, he must
Right.
be whatever, but that doesn't matter to me.
Mhm.
Right.
I'd rather know that the people that like my page found out about me some way
Mhm.
or
Right.
got influence or whatever, but not by me, really soliciting.
Right. Faking it.
Well, do you
Faking
see
it,
that?
yeah.
I've heard people talk about, like, if I have more likes, I'll get, there's certain promoters,
I'm sure.
or labels or whatever that want to mess with me that didn't before.
And I'm sure to a certain degree it works.
Yeah.
Right.
I guarantee you that, but it depends on what matters to you.
Right.
Like me, knowing I did that,
Mm-hmm.
it would just cost me too much.
Right.
Within me.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? It just and I really trust the process and the flow of my life and my career.
Mhm.
I
Right.
don't need that.
Mhm.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Have you ever been faced with something like that, like a challenge where somebody's like, if you can do this, then we'll support you, and it was like
Oh.
a challenging moment for you because you needed it, but then you decided to stay authentic.
Yeah. There's been several things, and it runs the gamut. Either that or doing a party for a cigarette company where I could make 30 grand or something.
Right.
But
Right.
I'm like, no, I'm not down with cigarettes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, so you always.
That's why they pay so much, because they know
Right.
Yeah.
nobody wants to mess with them.
Well, at the end of the day, for me, it's it's the journey is the destination.
Right.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So if I thought I was put here to make a lot of money, yeah, that might appeal to me. But if I thought I was here to evolve and grow, I'm probably gonna check things out and go, okay, I've got this opportunity to really check in with who I am right now.
Right.
And that's why I'm not gonna go with that sponsor.
Right.
You know what I mean?
What if you came into a lot of money? What would you do? What would you do with it?
There's a lot of things I would do in the area of philanthropy.
Okay.
I mean, I just think, there's a lot of,
Any particular causes that are close to you?
Well, one of the things I'm always sort of gravitating towards are the people that are the most helpless
Mhm.
in all this, which are like the children,
Yeah.
and so whether it's getting food to regions that are just really in bad shape
Mm-hmm.
and under some sort of not unlike us, but under some sort of governmental control
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't allow
Right.
for that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when they do have the resources,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's pretty common, I think.
I mean, it happens here.
Right. Sure.
Yeah, big time.
And so, but there's so many things. It's like, pick one. Is it the overfishing of the oceans? Is it killing the sharks? Is it, you know what I mean? There's just the water thing here. Like, I don't think it's really, honestly, I don't really feel like people are going to pay attention until we turn on the faucet and nothing comes out.
Right.
That's just how it is
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
I mean, and so any way that I could use that money to raise awareness is probably something I would choose, but it's it's a steep hill, but someone's got to try. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to sound like it's hopeless, but but
No, but it needs
it's
work.
just-
No, it
yeah,
does.
But it's.
Do you
know,
have
I think I
do you
just-
have these intimate conversations with the fans, like around causes that you believe in?
Well, I think I've drawn those people to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a thing, about Facebook. It's like, if you want to post about food, you'll find all the foodies.
Yeah.
If you want to post about puppies, you'll find all the puppy people. and whatever.
Right.
And so once people see what you're about, you will attract your tribe.
Sure.
And so if people see that I'm doing things with charities and stuff, they've reached out to me, and and if I could, I would definitely help and play that charity or whatever, or have conversations
Right.
around it and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm open. I'm just a real people person in general. I love to have conversations about many things, and yeah, so I'm definitely, I mean, most people can see that for sure. That like, I'm open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? Back to Deep for a minute. Was there a most memorable night?
Yeah, I would say our 10-year anniversary was quite memorable, because I just felt like it was beyond everything we imagined, yet knowing the potential was there for it to be that, but to actually see it come to fruition.
Who played?
That was a night with Louie Vega and Tony Humphries downstairs, and Rich Medina and Spinna upstairs.
Nice.
And
Sorry, I missed that.
Josh wish he was
Prince,
there.
Prince dropped in and was. It was just
Nice.
everything. My family was there. My mom was there, and yeah, it was just a special night all around. Yeah. But and that says a lot, because we have had quite a few. We've had really many special nights at Deep, and if I didn't feel like we've had them this year or anything, I wouldn't be doing Deep. But I really did. I went on quite a journey with. This is when I took my hiatus that I recently have come off of in the studio. Was when I really wanted to be present for my dad's health challenges, and seeing that through his transition, and at that time, during that period, I really didn't have a lot of time, lot of energy to put into Deep, and I was pretty much a one-man show at that point. And what was amazing is, after I came out of that and through that, Deep was still here. You know what I mean? I was doing events throughout that, but they were just, it was sort of like this machine that was going, and I just been like, wow, I don't know what was happening, but it just let me know that I felt like I have a cosmic nod that I'm doing the right thing, and then after that, it was just really about sort of getting it where I thought it should be after that, after actually putting energy into it again. And I can honestly still walk in there and go, it's still really good.
Yeah.
And I have a saying about that in clubs that, I've brought to an end or whatever. I don't like to stop them when it's just down, dwindling, last few people. As soon as it starts to feel like work, that's when I stop it. And so I've stopped doing clubs when they were packed.
Yeah.
Right.
But the essence had changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I think that, as a business person, right, that we talk a lot about branding. We talk a lot about, making money. But I feel like one of the benefits of building a good business is that from time to time you can coast a little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
And if you overuse that, it's not gonna work.
Yeah, you're right. Right.
We've all seen that or done it, but you need to be able to earn a day off or a week off or a month off. Right, and that's the mark, I think, of a good business.
Yeah, and actually, I think that's what was different before. I just kind of was doing it as it came along, and it was working to a certain degree, and then after a while, you actually start to plan for, I actually want to take this amount of time off, so I'm going to set things up in order that when that comes around, I'm able to take that time off. And even now, like, my schedule's really going crazy, so I have to go, this date, I'm not going to, you have to let my agent know I'm not available that weekend, or I'm just not going to be home at all, and things like that, so.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I played with club promotion a little bit and was not that good at it, but I never took it that seriously.
Right.
But our high point for me, we did a club in the late '90s called Dirt, and it was, and Paul Stewart was one of the partners.
Yeah.
And for me, like just getting to work with Paul, who had been a huge influence on me, and he was a partner in Brass, obviously, and so, that was a huge win. And we did one of those where like we had like 7 partners, and so no one had to actually do that much work, and it worked out. And we're booking. We had a couple of tricks up our sleeve. That was one.
Right.
Is like you split, and then obviously no one's making that much money either, but it wasn't really the money for us.
Right.
It was more just having a hot night, and then we had a couple of the partners worked at labels, so they were able to get talent.
Yeah.
And, so we had Rakim and EPMD and all this great talent, and the club, I remember it was a I think we had Destiny's Child release party.
Yeah.
And it was this huge thing, and Janet Jackson had a table, and
yeah.
it was this just incredible night.
Yeah.
And then the next week we had a gang war in front of the club. Like literally sheriffs shut the street down, and this is at Key Club. It was Billboard Live at the time, right?
Yeah, I remember.
And the week after that was over.
Yeah.
And the whole thing lasted 6 months.
Yeah.
For those of us in it, it was this great thing. But for me, there was a good lesson that I was able to take from that, which was we had no plan. And we went from literally being the hottest thing in the city to over in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it was just all because, no one was paying attention, right? Myself included. We were just kind of doing our thing, enjoying it while it was fun, and then, and that was it.
Yeah. Exactly. And yours isn't the first case
No.
I've heard of that happening. I've seen that exact thing play out several times over the time I've been involved in events. And
there's not really a blueprint, or there is, right? We could follow examples of people that are doing it right, but I think there's no barrier to entry. So you're just like, I want to produce, I want to promote a night. All you gotta do is get somebody to let you have the room, which isn't that hard, and then you're a promoter. And you don't have to know anything about the business or how to run a door or how to book talent or any of that stuff. And you can just be in it, which is good and bad, right?
Yeah, that's right,
because you started that way.
Yeah.
And you take your lumps, and one day you wake up, you're like, oh, okay, I like I actually know what I'm doing.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. And and there's been several times where like you're just on the cusp of going, I don't know if I want to keep doing it. Then something else will happen, and you're just like, I guess I'm supposed to keep doing this. And
what would you like to see happen with Deep?
I would like for it to really expand further into the sort of global arena, and just taking it on the road more, because I do events in San Francisco and New York and what have you, but and this is inspired by just feedback and just being and having a global community, and people wanting us to would love to see something like that there, although you say, oh yeah, there's a house club there, but I think what we do is special, and and I'd love to take it to other places.
What's stopping you from taking it? Do you need a team?
Well, actually, it's all in motion right now, so I'm not complaining.
Nice.
And also just it to continue to be a platform for other artists. And that's one of the things I miss about doing a weekly, because I could feature a lot more people.
Right.
But now, when you do a monthly, you have to go, okay,
Yeah.
this is what I'm doing on
Right,
these
right.
12 dates or whatever, and half of them are like resident nights or whatever. So you really have 6 or whatever. But now, there are other things happening to where we're going to do more events a month, but in different venues, which is sort of playing back into that. And also not, just from, I feel very fortunate to be able to cross-pollinate with some of the newer artists and their audiences. Like, recently I just did this thing called Crew Love in San Francisco with Soul
cool.
Clap and Pillow Talk and all those guys. And just hearing this other, just tapping into this other pool of talent, wanting to feature them at Deep as well, and so steps are being taken in that way.
Nice.
Because I definitely had a lot of artists come through our doors, and just really want to continue that, and also produce events that will continue to merge our audiences. Yeah.
Who's been the biggest surprise?
The biggest surprise. Surprise, I don't know, but because I feel like there are a few people that are really making an impact.
Yeah.
And it's, I'm noticing their labels and crews. That's really what it's about. And so, you have to give a lot of respect to Damian Lazarus and Crosstown Rebels, and then Get Physical and Hot Creations, of course. I mean, they've really changed the landscape of, house music.
So have you booked somebody that, like, not necessarily that you weren't sure about, but you weren't expecting them to bring it like they brought it?
No.
No.
I'm good at doing my homework.
Okay.
So
That's good.
So I kind of
Yeah.
thought that they would bring it.
Who do you think is who's an underrated DJ that people should pay more attention to?
God, who was I talking about recently? We'll have to come back to that one.
Okay.
But there was someone that I
You think-
really thought in that way. But
Okay.
the funny thing is, a lot of people that were previously underrated are really getting their due,
Yeah.
like Harvey,
Yeah.
and so, but they're from the older school. So obviously anybody that I feel is underrated is going to be probably from the older school, because
Sure.
I feel like a lot of the younger people are getting,
Yeah.
they're just due. So
Okay, we
Like
have a
early
couple Twitter questions. One is, wait, who is this from? Shark Feichel. What
We
was
have
the
some-
first house record?
the first house record is considered to be On and On by Jesse Saunders.
Okay.
Now, the first house record that I played would probably be that I played a lot, I should say, because I have On and like that record as well. But there are a couple that really did it for me, and one would be Blazes, If You Should Need a Friend. And then there was there's Your Love by Frankie Knuckles.
Okay.
So those are like early Chicago stuff was pretty much the stuff. That was, I mean, although Blaze was on a New York label, that it was actually the first records that I got were records from Chicago, because at the time I started mail ordering with Derek Carter,
Oh,
who
wow.
was working at Imports, etc. there, and I was just like, send me everything.
That's hilarious.
And so that's it, because of Derek is really how I started this really expansive house music collection. And of course, it was funny later on when we start doing gigs together. Remember when I used to mail order with you? And it was just funny.
That's
when you
great.
look back at it, but yeah.
So how does it, obviously finding new music now is a totally different process. How do you do that?
Well, you have to dig. There is just no other way around, unless you want to play what everyone else is playing. And there are some common hits that I've actually liked the records, but it's very important to, someone wrote something recently about it's important what you play in between the hits. And so to find those gems as well.
I love
and
that.
So you know, it goes from everything from me listening to other people's podcasts to digging on the various sites, TrackSource, Beatport, what have you. And you know, this is the thing that's difficult now that's made that whole process. You know, we used to have there was a part of the DJ culture is just going to this store, and at the time, you know, to buy your vinyl records and what have you, and at the time, the distributors were the gatekeepers, so they were the filters,
right?
For, you know, and so, quote unquote, undesirable music didn't really make it through many of the channels.
Yeah.
So they already went through the process for you, so you could just pick from this bevy of, you know, fairly quality records. And now I could produce a crappy track right now and put it up if I had a label or whatever, and it didn't have to go through any sort of process. And so now
funny you say that.
People like me and a lot of other DJs are faced with literally 500 to 1,000 promos a week to sift through.
Oh wow, that's
and
crazy.
come out of it with literally a handful of records that we feel will have staying power, will make it into our crates, you know.
That's so amazing you say that. You know, I was just thinking, like, my collection's not that big, but it's really good. And partly because, you know, I used to go to Street Sounds to see Steve Loria. I used to go to, what was the store where Doc worked?
Prime Cuts.
Prime Cuts.
Oh, yeah.
And I would sit there with Doc for 2 hours and get a lesson.
That's right.
And we would play stuff and talk about it and, you know, and like, you had help from people that were in it.
Yeah, that's the other part of it, is you had people in the store that got to know you, got to know your taste over a period of time.
Yeah.
Hey, I pulled some things to the side I think you'll like. No one's doing that.
No. Yeah, you bring some records.
Well, well, now you just go on to like Hype Machine and go under favorites and just see what the crowd is saying and then kind of filter that way.
Yeah.
But like I don't even know what I like. Like my playlist, I don't even know what genre those guys are in. So people ask. I mean, I have no one educating me. I only just listen to the beat and go, I like that.
And then it's like, and then you have to take in other things into consideration. What is the process for something making it into the Hype Machine?
Right.
Is it the label that gave us their promo first that we're going to put in our Hype Machine because they gave us an exclusive for 2 weeks before it comes out on the other side? Or is it actually a record that represents that's a true reflection of what's hype now?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
It's
so
just
interesting.
like, because I mean, honestly, there will be things in some of the hype charts that to me don't really belong in there.
Yeah,
But
no,
that's
I
me,
totally
so
agree.
it
There's
doesn't
like
matter.
hit or misses on weeks. I'm like, there's nothing here. I have a Twitter question from Mikey Jaswell. Why hasn't Deep House made it on the main stage versus trance, progressive, dubstep?
Well, after going to Coachella and other things, it's definitely moving in that direction. And some of the quote-unquote EDM guys or whatever, the bigger DJ, I see their sound moving back towards that. And several of them have written it, and some articles had said something about like playing more of it and what have you. You've got big promoters like Insomniac saying that we're not going to feature any quote-unquote big DJs. That's sort of saying that we're moving in this direction a little more. I mean, you can see it, like, just by being out there, you know, I can definitely see it I saw at, you know, some of the stages at Coachella that wouldn't normally have DJs on them are putting certain DJs on there. And so I definitely see it moving in that direction. Now, what is key here is what this person's definition of deep house is.
Mm-hmm.
Is it what's being called deep house
Right.
or, you know what I mean? Because there are some things that, like, like when I buy music and I categorize it and it's saying deep house, I'm like, no, that's deep tech. I'll put it in my deep tech folder.
Right.
That's like, for me, you know what I mean? So it's like, are you cool with
Right.
calling deep tech deep house,
Mhm.
you know,
Right.
or whatever? But I regardless, I see it moving in that direction. Whether it's going to get as big as EDM, because I really find like those things are so palatable for the mainstream. Like
Yeah.
we're talking about EDM, we're talking like a lot of the music is centered around partying, like hands in there and what have.
Right.
You're not going to really get that from deep house music.
Right.
You're going to feel something in your soul and
Mm-hmm.
people get into it. But EDM has that mass appeal and things like that. In hip hop too, there's
Right.
hands in the hair.
Yeah.
Hip hop, the things that are really the genres that are really blowing up kind of have that mass appeal. I don't know if deep house will ever get there, and I don't want to say I'm not sure if I wanted to, but if it did make it there, I would just hope that, you know, a lot of the, you know, substance or the, you know, the authenticity of it is maintained.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a tricky dance.
Yeah.
Well, I think, you know, as that happens, or to the extent that it happens, that's going to be part of your job,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? Is because you represent that authenticity and that
Mhm.
continuity,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so a voice like yours becomes more and more important.
Yeah, and I feel like there's quite a few people that are committed to that, and
Sure.
in the aforementioned labels, you know, Crosstown, and all those guys are just putting out such amazing releases. I mean, you know, it's so funny in doing this, like you know, when I played at Coachella, and people are like, we really like it you're playing, you're mixing it up, and it's like, you know, like, what do you think, I'm just playing Soulful House? Like, you think I just play Soulful House at Burning Man?
Right.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
and the thing is, I can honestly say I mix it up because I'm interested in the newer music that I'm mixing it up with. I don't feel like, oh, you know, I want to stay relevant. I should probably put some of this stuff in there. Like, I really feel it.
Yeah.
There's some good new music out.
Yeah.
And I mean, not just new music, but over the last 5 years or so, some of it I'm going back and finding some of the earlier music from some of these labels. You know? But so much of it, like I said, so much of it has come out, you miss it.
Right.
And you'll be out and you'll hear something, and I'm like, oh man, let me find out what that is, and I'll go back, find it on Beatport, whatever. And it's
Right.
like 2011, what? You know what I mean?
Yeah, where'd that come from?
Seriously. Yeah,
Sure.
like things, it's easy to miss things. And this is the tricky part about like trying to not go out so much, because every time I go out, I find new music. Like
Right.
I was talking about that with one of my friends. It's like, man, it's just crazy. Everybody you go listen to is playing different stuff.
Right.
And I always find, and so I'm like, if I didn't go out tonight, you know what I mean?
Are you Shazamming like crazy?
When I can, yeah. I will. I mean, I was talking to someone about this the other day, like at Coachella, someone was playing, Chris Mullins was playing in the Yuma tent, and he just played, ended his set with this really beautiful record. And I was in the middle of the floor, you know, dancing with some people, and I was like, I need to go find out what this is. And so it's like, when I lose that's
Yeah.
probably when I'll stop playing. And so I literally waited for him to get done after asking a couple people around. If they're like, no, we don't know what it is. Turns out it was his record.
Oh, wow.
So
Oh,
Good to
nice.
Me record. And yeah, I was like, you know, I still have that. you know. And I think it's very important to maintain that fire, to do whatever it takes to find music, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you said you don't go out as much. I think we saw in an interview you mentioned that you're more likely to go out and have some sushi
Then dance.
than go out dancing nowadays.
No, I don't remember.
No?
He's like, that changed.
that a misquote?
True. That now, this is the thing. Like, it depends on what my pull is to go out. I won't just go out to go out.
Right.
But if I find, like now, I would probably go out more than I would at that time. And that, I don't know, that could have been true at that time.
Sure.
Because not a lot, to me, I felt like the music really hit this lull a few years back. And so that might have been true at the time. I
Right.
might have heard more interesting music at the sushi bar.
Right.
So
That's funny.
so, but yeah, you know, and so that's why it's very important to me when I do go out to make it count. When I go to these festivals, to go to every stage and listen to people, even if I have to divide it. Oh, I'm going to listen to that person for 20 minutes. I want to make sure I catch some. And the funny thing, it's not something I'm forcing myself. It's something like I
you're
really
happy.
want to do
Yeah, you're
because
excited.
I think just from the historically, knowing that I've just made myself open to people and end up discovering something. So
Right.
knowing that that's always a possibility. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Are you? Oh, you mentioned listening to podcasts. What podcasts are you checking for?
it really varies. There's, you know, you got Boiler Room, you got Be It TV, you got Defected. They have one. It just like they come up and I'll just check, you know. They could be random podcasts. Like I'll find out about someone will post something and I'll check it out. I just don't like to leave any stones unturned as much as possible and check it out. And I usually end up finding something. Yeah.
Nice. Any? Give us a good book you've read recently.
A good book. See, a lot of the books that I read are more on like, you know, self-development kind of thing, and so
Okay.
That's our style.
I'm really into something called human design right now,
Okay.
and it's sort of a combination of the Kabbalah, astrology, and the teaching, and it's sort of probably the most accurate astrological sort of reading you could have, and so it basically provides a blueprint as to how you operate best in the world. And I got turned on to it a long time ago, but then I ended up befriending she's one of my closest friends, my friend Lisa, and she actually does readings, human design readings. So I ended up buying this book, and
cool.
and it's an interesting thing because you'll sort of fall under one of 5 types.
Yeah.
So you're either going to be a manifestor, generator, a manifesting generator, a projector, or a reflector. And with these things come a certain set of traits. You know what I mean? And so
like that.
as you learn what the things you do that serve you
Right.
versus the things that you do that don't serve you,
Get closer.
you will develop the ones, commit to developing the ones that do serve you, and releasing
I
the
like
ones
that.
that don't. It's really intriguing, and so it's one of the things and I'm reading Lonely Planet on Croatia
Okay.
because I'm going there in July.
I heard it's beautiful.
So those
I'll
are my
have to
2
make that.
books right now. Yeah, I'm kind of doing a little homework with that.
Yeah. I've been dying to go to Croatia.
Yeah, I heard it's gorgeous.
Are you
yeah,
playing?
me too. Yeah, I'm playing for a festival there called Sunspeak.
Okay.
Oh, that's going to be
Yeah,
amazing.
I'm
They
looking for it.
appreciate it out there.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
It's a good
hearing
place.
good
My
things.
friends all went to the boat regatta in Croatia
Yeah,
and
yeah.
had like the most amazing time. I'm
Yeah.
like so jealous that they did that.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Mark, you got any questions? Mark is a deep house DJ.
Guys covered a lot of ground, I think,
Okay.
mostly.
Cool. Well, I could do this all day, man. They're gonna kick us out of here.
Okay.
in a
Yeah,
minute.
All right. Cool.
But this is
Oh,
so.
what was you saw? Who did you meet? And how was this like? Oh, it was Laid Back Luke, by the way, who said it's about the tracks that you play. in
Yeah, that's
between.
right. That's who it
And
was.
He was talking about how you
Yeah.
shouldn't. Let me get close to this.
Yeah.
You shouldn't play the Beatport Top 100. I
Mhm.
think is what his speech was centered around.
Mhm.
You met someone I saw on your Facebook. You met Paris Hilton.
Right.
What was that like?
It was awesome. I went to play a after party. I mean, I went to actually just attend Loco Dice's after party at Coachella, and I'm sitting up there with my friends, and then Seth Troxler rolls in, and next thing I know, he's on the decks, and I'm still talking to my friends, and someone taps me on the shoulder. It's Seth, and he's like, "Marcus, do you have any music with you?" And I was like, as a matter of fact, I do. He's like, "Go get it. Let's go back to back." And so next thing I know, Seth and myself are playing back to back. And then this person just comes out of nowhere and just hugs me and is like, "I love you. I love your music," or whatever. And I kind of peel her off of me, and it's Paris Hilton. And she was just really sweet and smart. And a couple days later, I just wrote a post about, and it wasn't about me being besties with Paris Hilton. It was like, why waste your energy hating on this person when your energy could be used to serve something better in your life? You know, all I know is I met her, she's sweet, whatever, and even if she wasn't sweet, and even if she didn't play music that you like, what does it matter? They're more like, the people that I see complaining about her the most are probably, well, one thing I said about it was that she's not in your way, you're in your way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
great.
She's not taking gigs from you. Trust me. Those are different gigs.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? And
Right.
so, like I said, it's, again, letting things run its course. If she's meant to stay DJ, she will. And if not, you know, she won't. But what does it matter to you? Isn't what you're out there to create more important than you channeling your energy towards, you know, to me, it's all toxic, you know? And so it's like, I'd rather stay away from that, you know? And, but I just had to give, everything I post is about my experience with that. I'm not regurgitating or parroting what someone else is saying.
Right.
It's just like, that was my experience of her, and it was a pleasant experience.
No, it's a good. She seems to pop up in a lot of our podcasts, especially when it comes to the DJ Paris Hilton. So it's nice to see everyone's.
Yeah, she's
Positive.
around. She makes it around. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think, you know, you bring up a good point, which is that people get distracted with stuff that doesn't matter. You know, and that's what we heard from an earlier interview is like, she does her thing. It may be your thing, it may not be your thing, but who cares?
Right.
But it's like the tone of it is just like so personal, and it's not personal.
Yeah.
You know, and she's not taking gigs from you personally. Trust me. You know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, whoever is willing to pay her whatever, that's their thing. Yeah, it's not. You know what I mean? What does it matter to you at the end of the day? That's their choice.
Right.
People can spend their money however they want to spend it.
Right.
You know, and
yeah, no, I think that's great. Last question, going back to the Twitter question we had, when we were talking about Deep House, and I think that was written through the framework of, like, you know, Mark, Farina, Carrie Chandler, Dennis Ferrer, those times, right? I guess the question was, you know, why has this not really made? I mean, certain places, Chicago, you go to Detroit, it's a little different there, right? But it hasn't really made main stage in the way that EDM has. But you talked about it's kind of going back and it's kind of getting there, right? What do you think's driving that? Like, why are people sort of gravitating to more? Is it certain artists, certain DJs, or, you know, because it's an interesting phenomenon.
Well, see, one of the things, you know, this is like the, you know, where you've got the pros and cons of putting a label on something.
Right.
Like when you mention Deep House, it's historically in music, it's like, okay, what can we call this so we can market it?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And now there's this Deep House thing, and some of the music isn't Deep House, but as far as appealing to the ears of the people that will put it you know,
Sure,
on
yeah.
the main stage,
Right.
it does that. So whether it is really deep house or not, it has that sound. I mean, you know what I mean? Like some of it has this sound that is more commercially accessible or palatable.
So how would
I
you
would say.
define then? Following that, how do you define what's deep house and what's not?
Well, I mean, you know, I could name deep house records from the 90s, you know,
Sure.
80, or late 80s, 90s, you know, as far as, but I just always called it house.
Right.
So, you know, but sometimes, you know, now it is important to say it so that people understand what you are promoting or whatever. But I think for the most part, the people that we are, you know, promoting to get it or what have you. But just like any other music I play, I feel like deep house is deep music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, you know, because I've heard different variations of it, and some of it is so incredibly minimal that I can't see it ever going,
Right.
you know, mainstream, because people need a little more to get into for it to go
Sure.
mainstream.
Sure.
You know, I mean, a lot of it has no lyrics whatsoever.
Right.
So, you know what I
Sounds.
mean?
Just sounds.
Yeah. So when you're talking about EDM, there's a lot, you know, there are lyrics and things like that, and things for people to yell and scream.
And sing to and those types of
Yeah,
things.
yeah, party,
Yeah.
kind of party oriented.
I always
stuff.
kind of felt the same way. It's house is just house. If
Yeah,
it sounds
yeah.
good,
Mhm.
it sounds good, right? And then I just sort of become a battle of all the different subgenres, and it's this and this, and you could just argue all day and day.
Right,
It's just, you know, house.
right.
So
But I mean, Dennis Ferrer is probably, to this point, as close as it has gotten to being
Sure.
like Hey Hey,
Yeah,
things like that. Because Dennis is, I always give Dennis respect for that. He's a great producer, whether he's making a soulful house song or a bigger hit or whatever. He makes quality production, and I think that's another part of it. Is like the production quality.
Yeah.
Whether you like EDM or not, the production quality is
That'll
usually
show
there.
through.
You
Right.
know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's big.
And so,
It
like,
sounds
when
big.
you're listening to some quote unquote deep house and stuff, some of it is dirty, you know? I mean, and some people like it dirty, but how personally I choose my records is the sonically, like production quality. And there's some records, I really wish I could play that, but, you know, the drums need to be brought up, or, you know, it needs to be brought, you know, the production needs to be brought closer to the surface to where you could hear the essence of the track or something like that. And so until the production level matches that, I don't really see it getting there. But the thing is, I don't know a lot of people that are really waiting for it to happen on that level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because people are fearful of it losing something, you know, which they have good reason to do, because
Absolutely.
once something becomes that big, there's a lot of people that want to cut into the pie, which is already happening. You know, it's already happening. So
Do you see that? Like, is the crowd showing up at Deep different?
I've seen that happening for a while, but the cool thing about that is that people come for what we're doing.
Yeah.
So it's not like we see the crowd like, oh, I should play a little more this way or whatever. I welcome that.
Right.
Well, and just like when people ask me, would you ever want house to be on the radio? I'm like, yeah, if it maintains its integrity. You know, if the integrity
Yeah.
of the music is maintained and it's not watered down. Yeah. So I see it the same way. I mean, to me, that's crazy to not want certain people into something that
course.
you're sharing. I mean, you know
Right.
what I mean? Like something you believe in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And say, oh, I don't want these people to get exposed to it. That's crazy to me, because that's not what the music's about, not the music I play,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's about love, you know. Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you
Yeah.
for doing this with us.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you for doing what you do.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Good.
And,
Hanging out with you guys, sharing
Yeah.
space with you guys.
Come back, man. When you're
All right.
when you're rolling stuff out, you want to promote, come back.